Good afternoon. I want to thank Reverend Dr. Bertha Perkins and Minister Ray Ely from the New Fellowship Baptist Church and Nashua Pride alumni Glenn Murray for joining us today. Right here in Nashua, 75 years ago, we broke the professional baseball color barrier. A year before Jackie Robinson stepped onto the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, our very own Nashua Dodgers fielded the first integrated professional baseball team in America with two African American players, pitcher Don Newcomb and catcher Roy Campanella. The 1946 Nashua Dodgers won 2/3 of their games, and they also won the New England League title. Campanella led the team in home runs and RBIs, while Newcomb struck out 100 batters and allowed the fewest runs of any pitcher on the team. Campanella was called up to the Brooklyn Dodgers farm team in Montreal for the 1947 season, with Newcomb following him the next year. Both of them would go on to have very successful major league careers, but the short time they played in Nashua left its mark on baseball and on America. As we gather here today, Major League Baseball teams are having spring training with rosters featuring players from all over the world who are there because of their talent on the field, regardless of their color. That all started right here in Nashua at Holman Stadium. We are here today to remember the part Nashua played in this important history. Alongside Jackie Robinson, Newcomb and Campanella were trailblazers for every African-American baseball player who came after them. And while they should have been in the major leagues long before they finally got their chance, Nashua can be proud that their journey brought them to our city and that we were lucky enough to get to watch them play ball. Now I'd like to introduce my old friend, Dr. Reverend Bertha Perkins, for a few remarks.
Good afternoon. My remarks are, I remember the occasion. I remember the meeting as well. What they remembered about me was they were surprised I knew Pee Wee Reese. I knew Pee Wee Reese because my stepbrother were friends with him, and knew him in the Negro race, so-called Negro League at that time.
Yeah.
And so my introduction was Pee Wee Reese, a shortstop.
Yeah.
And that was my remembrance. Knew Roy Campanella. I knew Roy Campanella, Jackie Robinson, and the rest of the players. Great introduction, great memory.
All right, well, thank you, Reverend Perkins. It's
You're
really
welcome.
nice to see you again.
Thank you.
And now, of course, we have Minister Ray Ely, also of the New Fellowship Baptist Church.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember this, and I've read about this, and my parents talked about this because this was such a big thing for Black Americans during the 1950s. It was such a big deal that how good they were. And you're right, Mr. Mayor, we do owe Nashua a vote of confidence and a vote of thanks, because there was another place they tried to get them on first, and that was in, I won't even name the town, but it was in Illinois. And the whole league threatened to quit, and everybody went up in arms because they wouldn't do it. But Nashua had a reputation for getting along with people, and Mr. Branch Rickey thought that it would be better if he brought them to Nashua. So that's why Nashua gets the credit for it, that they were the first one. And they were the first two here, but they sent Jackie Robinson to the Montreal team. And so while they were playing here in 46, he was playing in Montreal, but they were kind of a triplet in that. But we do think Nashua, and these two guys for the rest of their lives, they talked about how good Nashua was, how they were invited, how they won a lot of games here, how the people were nice. And I think the people liked the fact that they were winning. I mean, everybody does. And one of the things that we might want to bring out is during his first season here, Mr. Roy Campanella, he actually served as the manager for the team because the manager got kicked out of the game. And when the manager got kicked out of the game, Mr. Roy Campanella took over, and he was the first African-American ever to manage Caucasian players. And that happened here in Nashua in 1946. And what he did was he inserted Don Newcomb in the lineup, and Don Newcomb had a game-tying 2-run homer, and he pinched hit in the 7th inning, and that's how they won the game. And that was his first season here. And that excellence, that undeniable excellence that they brought to the game. And they did this not only here, but all through the major leagues. Before they got to the Brooklyn Dodgers went to the World Series 3 times in 25 years. Once they got there, it was just undeniable. For 10 years, they were in the World Series 6 times. And it was almost every year. And they were always competitive. They were always, and the first year that Don Newcomb, when he left and he finally got to the majors, he went and he was the first African-American ever to be a rookie and start the World Series. And he was the first African-American to pitch in the World Series. So we had this undeniable excellence that happened because of Nashua. Because Nashua allowed these great players the opportunity to play when others wouldn't. So we say thank you to Don Newcomb and Mr. Roy Campanella, but we also say thank you to Nashua for giving him an opportunity. I'm done.
Well, thank you, Ray. Those are great recollections and great memories. Now we have Mr. Glenn Murray, who is a former star for the Nashua Pride right here in Nashua, and another major leaguer who played here initially. So why don't we turn this over to Glenn?
All righty. Everybody see me? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mayor Donches, for inviting me out. Good to see Reverend Perkins, Minister Ray. We work together a lot around town. It's good to see you again. I want to say another special thank you to my mother who's watching back home in Manning, South Carolina right now. But as a player, I was brought here in 1999 by the owner, Chris English, GM Billy Johnson, and assistant GM Todd Marlin. I had no idea really where Nashua, New Hampshire was. I just wanted to play baseball and just come out and have some fun. And I got up here, and the first meeting of someone in the town was, I felt at home, like South Carolina, that South Carolina feel. So after going through, we're meeting a couple of people, we finally get to the stadium, and I'm kind of like, never heard of the stadium. But while we were touring the stadium and, they're showing us around, Todd Marlin informed me of the history of the stadium, which really, that really, I can say it was an inspiration, because as much as, my generation, we may know names, we really don't know places. And for me to come to Nashua and be able to play on the same field as Don Newcomb and Roy Campanella, and to know that this is where the color barrier was broken in baseball was a very unique feeling. Very humbling, very made you appreciative of the town. But with the wait, hold on one second here. When we got here, like back to when we got here, we were treated, as the mayor said, as Reverend Ray said, we were treated as family instantly. Everybody loved us. They treated us as superstars, good and bad. You know, some guys had to have host families back then, but just to be on that field and know that this is where the race barrier was broken in Nashua. The fans were coming out. They enjoyed it. They loved it. We loved the fans. It was very, I called it a homey feeling, like you're playing in front of your family. A lot of guys love to come here. A lot of guys love to play here. And the stadium is rich in history. And you know, when I see stuff like that, and when I get the chance, I've played in many stadiums, older stadiums, Negro League stadiums throughout my career, down in Birmingham, Alabama, all down in the South. We've played in these stadiums, and these stadiums are now gone because I always go back to, you know, just kind of take a trip down memory lane. One thing I love about Nashua is that they're not letting the stadium go. This should be, Holman Stadium should be there forever. It's a very significant part of our history, American history, baseball history, along with Black history. And we need to keep passing that down to our younger generations, because if we don't do it, it'll die. And I would hate to see that. Like, I love the stadium. I love the town. I love the city. You know, I've been a citizen here now for 17 years, and I love it. And it's because of the people of Nashua and the feeling that I got when I played here. And now that I'm living here, it's even better. So let's keep this stadium alive, everybody. Keep the memories alive, keep the history going here, because this is very, very unique. No one else in this country can say this except us here in Nashua, New Hampshire. Thank you.
Well, Glenn, we're of course really glad to have you here in the city. But where did you grow up in South Carolina? What town?
I grew up in a small town, Manning, South Carolina. Population back when I came out of high school was give or take 5,000. So, yeah. You know, that's my hometown, and you know, Nashua reminds me of it a lot. It really does. Just a bigger version of it, but it reminds me of what's the word I'm looking for here? The hospitality that my hometown gives out to everyone. I received the same thing here, and I think that's what drew me here to this city to live here.
Well, it's really nice that you're back.
Thank you.
Well, now we have the official city proclamation recognizing African American History Month. And so I will present and read the proclamation. Whereas February is African American History Month, it is a reminder to always honor and celebrate our African Americans in Nashua and beyond for being part of our world and for all of their contributions. Nashua has a special connection to African American history with Holman Stadium and the Nashua Dodgers. Outside of our community, African Americans, including Dr. Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, Barack Obama, and many others, have changed our world in the best way and taught us how to live better lives. Whereas in 1925, historian Carter Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, and the next year, in 1926, celebrated Negro History Week in February, as it coincided with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. As a result, similar clubs were organized across the country, and progressives honored the effort, and the teachers even requested African American history materials for students. And whereas recognition of African Americans grew throughout the country during the 1950s and 1960s, the civil rights movement propelled awareness of Black identity, particularly for our younger generations. February officially became African American History Month in 1976. While celebrating then, President Ford said, quote, "Seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history." And whereas today, African American History Month affords us the opportunity to not just reflect on the past, but also reflect on how we recognize African Americans in the present and how we can bolster that recognition in the future. Now, therefore, I, Jim Donches, Mayor of the City of Nashua, do hereby recognize February as African American History Month in Nashua. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you all for your contributions to our community, and your giving us some very interesting stories about history here in the city and at Holman Stadium. And now I believe we have a video that highlights Holman Stadium and its place.